So, what if a dictator just disappeared overnight? Sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie, right? But for Venezuela, it's a real life what if that experts have actually wargamed. So, let's get into it and see what our sources say could really happen.
Okay, picture this. It's January 3rd, 2026. You turn on the news, and this is the headline you see, a quote from the US president. The tone, super decisive. The implications, just massive. This one sentence, right here, kicks off a geopolitical earthquake.
So, here's the scenario laid out by the Atlantic Council. It's a quick, slick special forces raid. They capture President Nicolas Maduro, put him on a U.S. warship, and he's off to New York. Why? To face charges of narco-terrorism, basically using drug money to fund terror. The mission? A success. But it leaves this huge hanging question. Okay, what now? An event like this, it would send shockwaves around the world, instantly. And right out of the gate, you'd see the experts completely split, deeply divided on what it all means. So on one side, you have the camp that sees this as a total win. Matthew Kroenig from the Atlantic Council basically calls it a home run. The thinking here is, look, you've taken out an anti-American dictator who is destabilizing the whole region. That's a good thing for everyone, right? It opens the door for a freer, better Venezuela. But then you have the complete opposite take, and it comes just as fast. Legal expert Celeste Kremiatic says, hold on a second. She argues that no matter what Maduro did, the raid itself is illegal. It breaks the UN Charter, the whole rule about not using force against another country. The warning here is that even if your intentions are good, actions like this could set a really dangerous precedent and just tear up the rulebook of international law. And there you have it, the immediate split. Is it a heroic act of liberation, or is it a reckless violation of a country's sovereignty? There's just no easy answer, especially in those first few hours. And that tension, between getting the result you want versus following the rules, that's really the core of this whole debate. Now, this isn't just some academic debate. People have actually tried to predict the fallout from something like this. They've run simulations, and trust me, the results are pretty scary. Yeah, according to The Guardian, the U.S. government did this back in 2019. They ran war games to figure out, okay, what happens if Maduro is gone? And the conclusion they came to? It's grim. Not a single one of their simulations had a happy ending. So the simulations pointed to three paths, and honestly, they're all just nightmare fuel. Scenario 1, a popular uprising gets so bad the military starts shooting its own citizens. Scenario 2, a coup from inside the palace, but that doesn't bring peace. It just kicks off a bloody power struggle among the bad guys. And scenario 3, a foreign attack. That could spark a guerrilla war that drags on for years, with loyalists blowing up pipelines and roads. Douglas Farah, a consultant who was actually in those simulations, he doesn't mince words. He says you're not looking at a quick, clean transition to democracy. You're looking at prolonged chaos, a huge mess, a power vacuum in a country that's already broken. Well, it's not easy to fill. We're not talking weeks or months here. We're talking years. Okay, so to really get why the risk of chaos is so incredibly high, we need to zoom out from the hypothetical and look at what's happening on the ground in Venezuela right now. Because this isn't some stable country we're talking about. It's a nation that's already deep in crisis. Just look at this number, 7.9 million. According to the UN, that's how many Venezuelans are now refugees and migrants. Think about that. That's nearly a quarter of the entire population, forced to leave their homes. It is one of the biggest displacement crises on the planet. And for the people who are still there, the situation is just dire. This analysis from CETA points to a total collapse of public services. We're talking millions of people who can't get basic health care, can't find clean water, can't get an education. The very systems that hold a society together have just crumbled. And the economy? It's a complete catastrophe. This Swiss government report for 2025 forecasts that the economy will shrink again and inflation will be over 250%. But it's this last number that's just mind-blowing. The official monthly minimum wage is about $1.40. $1.40 for a whole month's work. It's a level of economic collapse that's honestly hard to even wrap your head around. And these numbers from the CETA report really show the human toll of all this. More than half the population living in poverty. 70% of hospitals and clinics aren't fully working. Malnutrition has skyrocketed, and almost a third of teenagers are out of school.
This is the broken foundation that any new government would have to try and build on. So, with all this complexity, you've got the global politics, the risk of total chaos, the humanitarian disaster. How on earth are you supposed to make sense of it all? Well, our sources actually give us a pretty handy toolkit for how to think about it. There's a great piece in the Caracas Chronicles that lays out a guide. First, try to stick to the facts, not the politics. Second, use careful language, words like likely or possible, because nothing is certain. Third, and this one is so important, never assume the people in charge are being rational. They can be driven by all sorts of things: ideology, ego, greed. And last, always challenge your sources. Ask yourself where this information is coming from. At the end of the day, the biggest lesson here is that there are no easy answers. There are no simple good guys and bad guys. If you really want to understand the crisis in Venezuela, you have to throw out the simple stories and just get comfortable with not knowing for sure. And that brings us to the final and maybe the toughest question of all. When a country is this broken, its economy in ruins, its society completely fractured, its future so uncertain, what does winning even look like? That's the question that looms over every possible future for Venezuela.